The removal was surgical. You did not see the gloves. You did not see the bright light or hear the count backwards from 10. You only felt the absence after the anesthesia wore off, and by then the universe had already closed the incision, disposed of the instruments, and moved on to the next emergency. You woke up in the recovery room of your life with a bandage over a part of your heart you did not know could be operated on, and the first thing you asked was not why. The first thing you asked was where. Where did they go? As if the person had simply walked out of the room of their own accord, as if the door had not been locked from the outside by hands much larger than yours. But the door was locked, Virgo. The universe removed them. Not as punishment, not as cruelty, not as some cosmic joke designed to test your capacity for grief. The universe removed them because you were hemorrhaging, because the connection between you had become infected with need, with projection, with the kind of desperate grasping that masquerades as love, but is actually two frightened people using each other to avoid their own reflection. The universe saw what you refused to see. It saw that every time you spoke to them, you lost a little more blood. It saw that every time they reached for you, they were not reaching for you at all, but for a version of themselves they could only access through your approval. It saw that the two of you had built a shared coffin and called it intimacy, and it decided, with the cold precision of a surgeon who does not negotiate with the patient, that one of you had to be extracted before both of you died inside the wound. If you are touching that place right now, if your fingers have moved without your permission to the exact coordinates of the absence, I need you to do something that will feel strange. I need you to press your palm flat against your chest and hold it there until you feel your own heartbeat, not a metaphorical heartbeat, the real one, the thud that proves you survived the surgery. And if you can feel it, if you can feel the stubborn persistence of your own pulse under your hand, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because this is the only space that tells you the truth about the operations performed on your soul while you were sleeping. And drop the word scar in the comments. Not healed, not whole. Scar. Because a scar is proof that something was once broken and then put back together by force. It is the only diploma the universe respects. Now, let me tell you what actually happened, because your mind has been rewriting the story since the day they vanished. You have been telling yourself that they left, that they chose to go, that they did not love you enough, or did not want you enough, or did not have the courage to stay and fight for what you were building together. You have been carrying that narrative like a stone in your throat, swallowing it every morning with your coffee, letting it erode your trust in your own judgment. But that narrative is a lie, Virgo. It is the anesthesia talking. It is the confusion that follows any major operation when the body is too traumatized to remember the sequence of events accurately. They did not leave, they were taken. The universe reached into the fabric of your shared reality and pulled them out by the roots, and the reason it hurt so much is because the roots had grown deep. They had wrapped around your ribs. They had fused with your nervous system, and when the extraction happened, you felt it as abandonment because you did not yet have the language for divine intervention. I want you to remember the exact texture of the separation, not the story you tell your friends, the raw data, the way the air in the room changed before the final conversation, as if The oxygen itself had been notified that something was about to be rearranged. The way their eyes looked at you in the final moments, not with coldness, but with a confusion that mirrored your own, a sense that something invisible was closing a door neither of you had agreed to shut. The way circumstances suddenly conspired with impossible precision. A job offer in another city that could not be refused. A family obligation that demanded immediate relocation. A silence that began as a pause and then hardened into a wall before either of you understood that mortar was being mixed. The way mutual friends suddenly stopped mentioning their name, as if a memo had gone out across the collective unconscious to let the wound clot without disturbance, that was not coincidence, Virgo. That was the surgical team at work. That was the universe deciding that the only way to save the future of this connection was to kill its present form. And you have been in recovery ever since. Not the dramatic recovery of public mourning where you wear black and weep at funerals and everyone agrees that you have suffered a loss. No, you have been in the quiet, humiliating recovery of someone who is expected to be fine. You went to work the next day, you answered emails, you showed up for birthdays and pretended that your appetite had not vanished along with them. You became very good at the sentence, "It is what it is." You said it so many times that it lost all meaning and became a spell, a verbal tourniquet you tightened every time the blood tried to flow back to the surface. But underneath the performance, underneath the competence that is your signature in your cage, you have been healing slowly, imperceptibly, cell by cell. You have been building new tissue in the dark, and because the universe is a master physician, it did not let you see the progress. It kept the bandages on. It kept you in the dark about your own healing because it knew that if you saw how quickly you were recovering, you would have tried to reopen the wound yourself. You would have chased them. You would have begged. You would have convinced yourself that the surgery was a mistake and demanded a second opinion from your own desperation. But the healing happened anyway. It happened in the months you spent alone on Saturday nights, not because you had no options, but because you finally realized that your own company was less lonely than the counterfeit intimacy you had been accepting. It happened in the boundaries you started enforcing with other people, the sudden, shocking clarity with which you began saying no to anyone who drained you, as if your body had developed an allergic reaction to emotional vampirism. It happened in the work you produced, the projects you completed, the gardens you planted, both literal and metaphorical, the spaces you organized and purified, until your environment finally matched the order you had always craved in your relationships. You became someone else while they were gone, Virgo. Not a better person in some moral sense, not a more successful person in some measurable sense, but a more solid person, a person with density, a person whose atoms no longer scatter when someone else walks into the room. And that density, that gravitational pull you have developed is exactly why they are being returned to you now. Because here is what the universe does not advertise in its brochure. When it removes someone for healing, it does not just heal the one who was left behind. It heals both patients simultaneously in separate operating theaters under separate anesthesia. While you were learning to live without them, they were learning to live without you. And I am seeing their recovery with such clarity, it is making my own chest ache. They have been in their own dark room, Virgo. They have been facing the parts of themselves that they could only avoid when they were leaning on you like a crutch. They have been forced to answer the questions they use to outsource to your wisdom. They have been forced to soothe themselves in the middle of the night instead of calling you. They have been forced to become the person they always pretended to be when you were watching, and in the forcing, they have actually become that person. Not perfectly, not completely, but sufficiently that the universe, reviewing both charts, has determined that the risk of reinfection has dropped below the threshold. The wounds have closed enough that contact will no longer cause sepsis. The two immune systems are strong enough now to share a space without collapsing into codependency. And they know it too. They may not know it in the language of spirit or surgery. They may not be listening to messages like this one or consulting their own oracles, but they feel it. They feel the shift in their own body the way an amputee feels an itch in a limb that is no longer there, except in this case, the limb is returning. They are dreaming about you with an intensity that wakes them up at odd hours. Not the nostalgic dreams of loss, the anticipatory dreams of arrival. They are seeing your face in crowds that do not contain you. They are hearing your name in songs where your name does not belong. They are experiencing what can only be described as a magnetic pull toward coordinates they cannot identify, a restlessness that no new city, new relationship, or new distraction has been able to cure. They have tried to replace you, Virgo. Do not think they have been pining in some romantic, static way. They have dated, they have distracted, they have done the work of moving on with the same grim determination that you have, but the replacement did not take, the graft did not hold, because the universe had already marked you as the original tissue, and the body rejects anything that is not authentic. Now, let me tell you the exact architecture of their return, because your mind needs the blueprint or it will sabotage the delivery. This is not going to happen the way you imagine. You have been imagining a reunion that looks like a movie trailer, a dramatic airport encounter, a midnight text that says everything, a public declaration in the rain. Erase that footage. The universe does not work in trailers. It works in the quiet click of a door latch. Their return is going to be so understated, so precisely calibrated to your new frequency that if you are looking for fireworks, you will miss the spark. It might be an email about something practical, something so boring and logistical that your first instinct will be to handle it like a task. A question about a shared account, a leftover possession, a mutual obligation that requires one final signature. It might be a mutual friend mentioning them in passing with a detail that does not match the version of them you have been carrying in your head. It might be them showing up at a place you both used to frequent, not dramatically, not staged, but simply because their own magnetic pull has navigated them there, the same way iron filings find a magnet. And when you see them, Virgo, when the moment arrives, you are going to feel something you do not have a name for. Not the old electricity, not the old panic, something slower. Something that feels like gravity correcting itself. They are going to look different, not physically, though there may be subtle changes. A new way of holding their shoulders, a new stillness in their eyes. The frantic, grasping energy they use to bring to your interactions will be gone, replaced by a groundedness that you will find both attractive and disorienting. They are going to speak to you with a voice that has been tempered by solitude. They are not going to beg They are not going to perform. They are going to be terrifyingly honest because the surgery stripped away their capacity for performance. They no longer have the energy to be anyone other than who they actually are, and in that raw, unvarnished state, they are going to offer you something they could never offer before: presence without demand, affection without extraction, love that does not need you to be anyone other than exactly who you are in the moment they find you. And here is where you must be careful, Virgo, because this is the moment where most reunions fail. The temptation is going to be enormous. The temptation to punish them for the pain of the separation, to make them prove themselves, to extract from them in one conversation all the suffering they caused you, as if you could retroactively balance the books. You are going to want to be cold. You are going to want to be safe. You are going to want to wrap your new density in armor and make them work for every inch of reentry. And some of that is appropriate. You should not abandon your boundaries just because they have returned. You should not pretend the wound never happened. But you must not, under any circumstances, use their return as an opportunity to reenact the old dynamic with the roles reversed. If you make them grovel, if you make them chase, if you make them earn back what was never truly lost, only stored, then you are not reuniting. You are getting revenge. And revenge is just another form of the same infection the universe operated to remove. What you must do instead is meet them from your new center, from the place you built while they were gone. When they speak, listen not for the words you always wanted to hear, but for the frequency behind the words. Is it steady? Is it clear? Does it match the frequency you have been cultivating in your solitude? Or does it try to pull you back into the old static? If it matches, if their new signal aligns with your new signal, then you do not need a grand reconciliation. You do not need a tearful confession or a dramatic recommitment. You simply need to acknowledge what is happening. You need to say, with the same calm you would use to note a change in the weather, "You are different. I am different. Let us see what this is now." That sentence, Virgo, that willingness to begin again without a script, is the only antibiotic that will keep the wound from reopening. I am seeing that the return is going to require a new contract, not a verbal contract, not a conversation where you both list your needs and negotiate terms like a business merger, an energetic contract, a silent agreement that the old rules no longer apply, the old rule where you dropped everything when they called, the old rule where they defined their worth by your attention, the old rule where your anxiety and their avoidance danced together in a pattern that felt like passion but was actually just two wounds finding each other familiar. The new contract is simpler. It states that you are two whole people who choose to share space, not two halves trying to complete a broken circle. It states that absence is no longer a threat because both of you have proven that you can survive it. It states that love is no longer a rescue mission, but a collaboration between two individuals who have already saved themselves. There will be a test, and I need you to know it is coming so you do not fail it. The test will arrive in the form of an old trigger, a situation that mimics the circumstances of the original separation. Maybe a job opportunity that threatens to pull one of you away. Maybe a misunderstanding that used to spiral into a week of silence. Maybe the reappearance of a third party who once acted as a wedge. And when this test arrives, your nervous system is going to scream that nothing has changed, that the surgery failed, that you are right back where you started. That is the lie, Virgo. That is the phantom pain of a limb that has actually healed. The test is not there to break you. It is there to prove to both of you that the new tissue is stronger than the old tissue, that you can face the same stressor and respond as new people. If you pass this test, if you both choose communication over assumption, presence over withdrawal, and trust over fear, then the reunion is sealed. Then the universe closes the final chart and files your case under successful intervention. I want to tell you something about the timing because your practical mind is demanding to know when. The universe does not give exact dates for returns of this nature because the return is contingent on readiness, not clocks. But I can tell you this, the window is open now. It has been open since the last time you chose yourself over your nostalgia, since the last time you said no to a distraction that reminded you of them, since the last time you looked in the mirror and genuinely liked the person staring back, not because you had achieved anything, but because you had survived something. That choice, that specific moment when you finally occupied your own body without waiting for their permission, was the final suture. That was the moment the universe checked your chart, checked theirs, and scheduled the follow-up appointment. So if you are asking when, the answer is soon. The answer is already in motion. The answer is that they are thinking about reaching out with the same intensity that you are feeling while listening to this message. And the only variable left is which one of you will acknowledge the magnetic pull first. Do not chase them. Do not manifest them with desperation. Do not perform rituals designed to bend their will toward yours. The universe did not perform major surgery on both of your souls just so you could revert to manipulation the moment the bandages came off. Your job is to continue being the person you became in their absence, to keep your boundaries intact, to keep your standards high, to keep your heart open but your arms uncrossed, neither reaching nor retreating, simply available. If they are being returned to you, they will find you in that posture. They will recognize it as the only posture that could have made reunion possible. They will know with the same certainty that you know this message is for you, that you are no longer the person they left. And that recognition, that mutual shock of seeing someone familiar in an entirely new form, is the only foundation that can hold what comes next. There is one more thing I must say, and it is the hardest thing. If they return and you discover that you no longer want what they are offering, that is also a successful outcome. The universe does not guarantee reunion in the form of romance. It guarantees alignment. And alignment sometimes means two healed people acknowledging that their paths no longer converge. If you meet them in their new form and find that your own new form no longer fits with theirs, you are allowed to say thank you for the lesson, thank you for the return, and goodbye with peace. Do not force a connection just because the pain of separation once convinced you that the connection was your destiny. Destiny is not a prison, it is a direction. And sometimes the direction requires two people to verify that they are no longer each other's destination before they can both move forward without ghosts. But for most of you listening, that is not the outcome. For most of you, the return is the beginning of the only chapter that ever mattered. The chapter where two people who were once each other's anesthesia become each other's awakening. Where the old wound is not forgotten but is transformed into the exact place where the new bond anchors itself, stronger for having been broken and reset. Where you look at them across a table or a room or a phone line and realize that the person who was removed from your life was removed so that both of you could become the people capable of finally, truly choosing each other without need, without grasping, without the frantic hunger that once passed for love. Do not wait by the window. Do not pace. Do not refresh your inbox. The train is already moving. The patient is already healed. The scar is already formed. And when the door opens, you will not need a script. You will only need the truth of who you became while they were gone. That truth is enough. It has always been enough. Let the stitches hold. Let the skin seal. Let them come back to someone they do not yet recognize, but will be honored to meet. Close your eyes now. The operation is over. The reunion is scheduled. And the universe, for once, is keeping its appointment.